What Americans think of this war. Before we go into the details, have a look at the summary table. It will give a fair idea of what Americans feel and think about present war. What Americans think of the war since over a couple of weeks. America is at war most of the times if different corners of the world. Either direct confrontation or intervention. For most Americans the war is like a video game with fighter aircrafts and firing drones, missiles and rockets zooming on the screen. They haven't seen war on their soil since the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. But not on their mainland except for 9/11 terrorist attack. The result of these wars have been economic slowdown. The Americans grumble and some protest. Nothing happens, it's back to business. The Americans haven't felt the pain or devastation that a war brings. The Americans really feel the pain when the body bags come to America, as it happened in Vietnam and to some extent in Afghanistan. Then they show their anger, people come out on the street to protest. But most Americans of this generation are not aware about this past. If not at war, they are busy supplying weapons and aircraft to countries who are at war or who intervene on their behalf. An American aptly put it, if ever there's a war and it's fought on American mainland, Americans will know the pain and realize the destruction and devastation it causes. And how it directly impacts the life of civilians mentally, physically and economically. Direct war is a different ball game. It's a different thing altogether when you provoke and attack some countries thousands of kilometers from America. Current American sentiment regarding war is shaped by a deep partisan divide and a general trend toward war fatigue. As of early 2026, public support for military intervention has reached historic lows, particularly following recent escalations in the Middle East. Here is a breakdown of what the data shows. 1. Record low support for new conflicts. Historically, Americans have shown high initial support for military action, e.g., 97% for World War II, 92% for Afghanistan. However, recent polling in 2026 regarding the conflict with Iran shows support has plummeted to approximately 38% to 41%, the lowest recorded level for any major U.S. intervention. 2. The partisan divide. Opinions are largely split along political lines, often dictated by trust in the sitting administration. Republicans generally show higher support for military action, around 70% to 80%, often viewing it as a necessary measure for national security or putting America first. Democrats overwhelmingly oppose recent military escalations, roughly 85% to 90%, citing concerns over civilian casualties and the risk of a long-term, forever war. Independents tend to lean toward opposition, with about 60% disapproving of recent military engagements. 3. Key concerns. When Americans think about war today, their primary fears include economic impact. Roughly 80% of Americans believe war directly leads to higher gas prices and domestic inflation. Safety. A plurality, 40%. Believes military intervention makes the U.S. less safe in the long run, fearing retaliatory terror attacks. Duration, there is significant skepticism about quick wars. Over half of the population expects any new conflict to last at least 6 months to a year, despite government assurances of a swift conclusion. 4. Global role versus military action. Interestingly, while Americans are wary of fighting wars, they aren't necessarily isolationists. Active role. About 60% still believe the U.S. should play an active role in world affairs. Alliances. Theirs is steady support for NATO and defending treaty allies, but a growing resistance to optional interventions or nation building. Summary table. Initial support for U.S. conflicts. Conflict year and initial public support. World War II in 1941. 97%. Persian Gulf War in 1991 it was 82%. Afghanistan War in 2001, it was 92%. Iraq War in 2003 it was 76%. Iran conflict in 2026 it is 40%. In short, the modern American view of war is one of high caution, heavily influenced by the economic costs at home and the perceived lack of clear exit strategies in previous decades. Some Americans are asking loud, why American is fighting Israel's war? Why is American acting as a world policeman? They have realized it's directly impacting the American economy, with price rise, shortages and pinching the pockets of ordinary Americans. Some even have gone to the extent of saying, it's not America's war, it's Trump's personal interest and ego. Hope the war ends soon and eases the hardship of the affected countries and other countries around the world facing shortages and hardships.